This time Stark, and in this video we are looking at the Tet Offensive. So the Tet Offensive took place between January to February 1968. And Tet is the most important event of the Vietnamese calendar, as it is the celebration of the Lunar New Year. And in previous years, this holiday period had been part of an informal truce between South Vietnam and North Vietnam. However, in 1968, the North Vietnamese military commander, General Giap, chose January the 31st as the date for launching his major offensive. And here the Viet Cong launched a series of simultaneous military attacks against US targets in hundreds of towns and cities in South Vietnam. Now Giap believed that the attacks would stimulate a mass uprising against the Americans, cause ARVN troops to collapse, and convince American leaders to give up their defense of South Vietnam. Now they carried out more than 120 attacks on many cities, such as Hue, where the fighting was ferocious and US control was only achieved on the 24th of February. They also did attacks on government buildings and military bases. Now they even managed to get inside of the US embassy before US forces regained control. And these events were televised on US TV, and much of the population was shocked by the ease of taking the embassy, so it led to this anti-war rhetoric inside the US. Now, the impacts of the Tet Offensive were vast. So for the Viet Cong, the Tet Offensive was a major military defeat. Now, they didn't arouse much support within South Vietnam, and around 25,000 Viet Cong were killed, with an extra 5,000 captured. Now, this can be contrasted with the US and South Vietnamese forces, where there were only 3,000 deaths. Even so, Tet was a strategic success for the North Vietnamese. Now, before Tet, Westmoreland and other US representatives had claimed that the war was nearly completed and that the US were firmly in control. But the Tet Offensive showed that there was still a long struggle ahead, and when Westmoreland requested 200,000 troops, it was seen as a sign of desperation. Walter Cronkite, who is a famous reporter on CBS News, also reinforced this anti-war rhetoric with his reports on the Tet Offensive. And he reported that the US was stuck in stalemate in Vietnam due to the determination of the enemy, their failed strategies, and the growing anti-war feelings domestically. And as I said, Walter Cronkite was a well-respected broadcast journalist who served for the CBS Evening News, and he was often referred to as the most trusted man in America. Now, Johnson's new Secretary of Defense, Clark Clifford, also recommended de-escalation. And the Tet Offensive also meant that in March 1968, Johnson announced that he would not stand for re-election. He also announced that he would be limiting the bombing of North Vietnam to the area below the 20th parallel. So in the early 1960s, the peace movement was largely a group of intellectuals with graduate students, and this was reversed when a 1967 anti-war protest took place in Washington, D.C., and this consisted of 100,000 people and Martin Luther King's disapproval of the war. And many historians see the Tet Offensive as the fundamental reason for the escalation of these anti-war demonstrations, and this ultimately had an impact on the campaigns ran by those vying for presidency, including Richard Nixon, who we will look at next video and what he did in Vietnam. So thank you for watching, and see you soon. Bye.